same thing with tacking. I'm going to find a spot for her that gives me room to work. And Annie likes checking out the tack before I put it on her. And I have no problem with that. Good girl. So she tends to be a little bit more sensitive about the tacking still. So I'm just going to be aware of that. And I'm just going to be a little bit more engaged with her. So I'm going to have my rope a little shorter, but I'm not holding it tight. I don't want to pull her head around. I still want her to make the choice to stand here. So, yeah. So there's already her saying she's not 100% comfortable with this. And so I'll just take my sweet time. Thank you. Good girl. The more you rush with things like this when they're not 100% comfortable, the worse you make it. And that is why Annie still has these reactions. And they've gotten a lot better. She used to run away from me when she saw the pads. Good girl. But just slowing down makes them feel like they can relax and breathe. Good girl. And until I can leave the rope on the ground and fully tack her up and her not be twitching and flinching and putting her head up, then I will not tie her to tack her. Thank you. I know this is not your favorite part. Thank you. Good girl. Come here. And this matters not just to make tacking easier, but if you skip over these little things where they hold tension, then when you get on, they are holding that tension. And if you have a super broke finished horse, they might just be jigging forward, they might not do anything, depending on the horse, but they might just keep adding those tensions until something happens that they can no longer ignore. So my job is to try and help get rid of these tensions along the way, so that when I am riding her, she is totally relaxed and engaged with me and not holding on to tension from our groundwork. You got something in your teeth? Sound like you have something in your teeth. Good girl. So Annie, good girl. No, step up here. Thank you. Good girl. Good girl. And Annie is really sensitive about her withers, which is part of this. She doesn't like things on her withers. All right. Put your head down. Good girl. Good. That was nice. So when I use the head down, I'm not pulling her head down. I'm asking with a little bit of pressure and rewarding any sort of try that I get. And that just helps me bring her brain back to me, get her focused, and it also helps release some of her bodily tension and her posture just by, just asking her to put her head down a little bit. And again, it's not a forced thing. It's just me asking her and waiting for her, and we've done this a lot, so she's getting good putting her head down. And good girl, good girl. Good girl. That was really nice, Annie. So this will look different with different horses. Some have no reaction to this. Some are really great with the pads and tack, just like she was with the grooming. Some are going to be a lot more anxious. She was a lot more anxious when she came. Some get very flighty. Some get really tense and braced. But the big thing is just slowing down enough where you can pay attention to what they're communicating and help them out. So this saddle tends to fit the mules that I have better here. And it also happens to be pretty light, so yay for me when I have to do this. Good girl. And you can see just that little bit of tension right there. And the worst thing you can do is rush them. Good girl. So if I have a horse that fits better in my heavier saddle, but they're super not okay with my saddle, I will do all of this work with one of my lighter ones so that I can maneuver it better and help them get nice and relaxed and not hold all this tension. And then when they are responding well, then I can just put the saddle up there without this. Then I'll switch my saddle to the heavier one and or whatever that fits them, so that I'm saving myself some muscle. Good girl. And you can clearly see she's not happy about this right now. She's turning her head away from me. She's swishing her tail. And some of this is in anticipation because I am riding her. And she's not 100% comfortable and relaxed with what people have done with her in the past. And she did not have very good experience with people previously. So some of this is definitely anticipation, but it's my job to help her through it. And if you have a horse that has this anticipation, it's your job to help them through it. There you go. What a good girl. What a good girl. And it does not have to be perfect. I think that's one thing she will not get to the point where she's 100% perfect with me putting this on, because she is holding some tension from the past, and that doesn't go away in one day. It goes away over time. But what it does mean is if she's still holding a little bit of tension with the tack, she's holding tension other places. So, yeah, good girl. Other places that involve the tack, which means I'm not going to jump on her and go giddy up for a trail ride if she's still not comfortable with tacking. But it might mean I take a pause on tacking and do some other work when she gets to a good point of her being nice and relaxed. There you go. That was better. Yeah. Now, when I'm starting a horse for the first time, then I do want this almost perfect. If they don't have past trauma involving tack and stuff, I will have this perfect before I go on to anything else. If I'm undoing things, like I said, I'm not going to just jump on and go for a ride because I'll get launched. But I don't spend forever fixating on something, because sometimes when you fixate on something, it makes them more tense. So I want her relaxed. I want her okay with this. She doesn't have to be 100% perfect about this. I'm just going to look for better, a change in the right direction. And each time that change gets a little bit better. So same thing with the girth. Good girl. And I do have her on some stuff for her tummy, because she does have a very sensitive tummy, which could mean that she's dealing with some stuff, ulcers. Good girl. Girl. So if you had her tied and was doing this, this could result in her backpedaling, hauling back on the rope, and freaking out, breaking things, hurting herself. Or she might not take it to that extreme. Good. 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 Very nice. I know you're super thrilled about this. Yeah. So I will say that when I've been getting on her, I have been making sure that anytime she's having these kinds of reactions that are a little bit stronger with the girth and she's not happy, I'm not just skipping ahead and jumping on her. Like, that's not what I mean by things don't have to be perfect before you move on. I look for a good change before I move on to the next thing. Good girl. But that doesn't mean just skip ahead when you get something decent and just jump on and yeehaw. It means I can go to some other groundwork and help her relax mentally. Because part of this, or a lot of this, is just mental tension from discomfort in the past, and her tummy was upset, so she's anticipating that too. But I don't just skip ahead of all of these reactions and jump on. I will work through them. And if she's doing great, and she's nice and relaxed and responsive to what I'm doing, I'll come back to it after taking a break, work on it some more, and go back to some groundwork until we get through it. She has a chance to process. She's not as tense. She's not trying to escape. And then I'll have my ride on her. Good. But part of the process of doing this with an animal that has had some trauma means some days it feels like Groundhog Day, where you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over, and over time it gets better. But it doesn't happen overnight. And when I'm girthing, I never pull it up hard and fast on any animal, even if they're totally okay with the girth. I just make it snug enough that it's not going to fall off, and slowly make it tighter as we go. And all my Western saddles have double latigos on them so that I can tighten them evenly from both sides to help keep the saddle straighter. Good girl. And to also work on both sides of the brain. I know I made it slightly snug. Slightly snug. There you go. Good. And so from here, continuing my session with her, I would just go into some groundwork, and then I would go back, loosen the girth, put it back on, take the saddle off maybe, put it back on, and just keep working until she had less of these reactions and she was more relaxed. And then in the process, I would do some groundwork, like maybe having her give to pressure a little bit, and we're going to have lessons on this later, so good. Good. That's very nice. but we'd get into more groundwork to give her something else to focus on and not continue fixating on the saddle and the girth and her discomfort. And then I would go back to the saddle. And we just go back and forth a few times until she can breathe and relax nicely through it. Good girl. Good girl. So, and when you go to untack your horse, it's the same thing. They need to be able to stand nice and quiet and relaxed. They need to be engaged with you, but not braced and hyper alert. Just nice and relaxed, and you need to be able to take your tack off without them dancing around or moving off. And I untack just the opposite of how I tacked up, just making sure they're nice and engaged through the process. And all the way back out to the barn or to the pasture or the stall, wherever you're taking them after your session. They just need to stay engaged. You need to be aware of how you're leading them through the process. And we'll have more lessons on all of that. And until you are not touching them anymore, you need to be aware of what's going on.